Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Wolf, and I serve as the president of the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles, the League of Women Voters of Nevada County, the League of Women Voters of Pasadena area, and the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County, along with the Personal Insurance Federation of California, welcome to tonight's candidate forum. The League of Women Voters and the Personal Insurance Federation of California are nonpartisan political organizations that encourage informed and active participation in government and work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters does not endorse individual candidates, nor do we support specific political parties. Our organizations and our education role seek to ensure that voters are provided with ample information to make the most enlightened decisions. Tonight's forum is an example of our educational efforts. I will be serving as this evening's moderator. We will hear from 7 of the 11 candidates running for the office of Insurance Commissioner of California. I'd like to introduce the candidates with us this evening in alphabetical order. Stephen Bradford, Keith Davis, Merritt Farron, Jane Kim, Stacy Korsgaden, Lalo Vargas, and Patrick Wolf. I'd like to take a few minutes to briefly review this evening's format. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening statements. Candidates were requested to include their qualifications and reasons for seeking this office. We will then have a question and answer period. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question presented. These questions have been submitted in advance by members of our 5 organizations. This allowed us the opportunity to sort questions to avoid duplication. It also allows us to cover the maximum number of topics in the time allotted, as well as ensure questions are directed to all candidates. We will conclude with 1 minute closing statements on what each candidate hopes to accomplish if elected. Our timekeeper will signal 30 seconds and stop. Candidates will be permitted to finish the sentence at the stop sign, but then they must stop. We will now begin the 2-minute opening statements. The order was determined by a drawing among the candidates earlier this evening. We will start with Patrick Wolf.
Hi, thank you very much. And thank you for hosting this. It's an honor to be here. I'm Patrick Wolf, and I'm running for California Insurance Commissioner. California's in an insurance crisis because we keep electing state legislators who don't have insurance experience to be insurance commissioner. And so I have a radical idea. This time, the person we elect to be the next insurance commissioner should be someone with real insurance experience. Early in my career, I spent 4 years at a major bank where my job was to build an auto and home insurance brokerage business. I got firsthand experience working with customers and carriers and learning how insurance markets operate. And then over the last 20 years, I've worked as a financial analyst, analyzing and investing in companies and markets, including insurance. California's insurance system is dysfunctional because we keep electing politicians who don't have insurance expertise to be our chief insurance regulator. So I'm running for insurance commissioner to give the people of California a better choice so insurance can work the way it's supposed to. This is my plan. First, I will hold insurance companies accountable. I will publish a report card on every insurance company to tell you how they behave in paying claims. Second, I will increase choice and competition. In most states, it takes on average 60 days to review and approve insurance company filings, but in California, the median time is 305 days. I will cut the red tape that's strangling our market to bring us in line with the national average. And third, I will improve transparency. I will publish an annual report that tells you how California's insurance market's doing on price, availability, and service. I am totally focused on fixing our insurance crisis and making insurance work better for the people of California. I am not running to launch a political career. I will not run for any other political office after being insurance commissioner. I'm taking no money from insurance companies, and I will never accept corporate gifts. I'd be honored to be your next insurance commissioner, and I ask for your vote. I'm Patrick Wolf, and if elected insurance commissioner, I'll be a wolf on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Next, Lalo Vargas.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the League of Women Voters and PIFC for hosting us. Currently, I'm an environmental science and biology teacher in a public school in Northeast Los Angeles. Now, if you look at the record of global temperatures over the last several decades, every year has been the hottest year on record. What climate change means for California is that we're at an increased risk of drought, of flooding, and wildfires. And almost every year now, a catastrophic wildfire destroys massive parts of the state, with each wildfire being much more destructive than the previous one. Insurance companies cite the devastating losses as a reason why they are no longer profitable and can continue to profit in the same ways as before, while charging Californians the same premiums as before. What that means is that they go to the insurance commissioner of the state and ask for rate increases. And if they don't get what they want, then they threaten to leave the state entirely, refusing to write policies and essentially creating a hostage situation in which Californians are forced to pay their ransom. The insurance companies are right about one thing, which is that the climate crisis is racking up an enormous bill. But the real question is, who is going to foot that bill? Californians, ordinary renters, homeowners, small business owners, are not the authors of the climate crisis. Those who are the most responsible for this crisis should be the ones who pay for it. The old saying goes, if you break it, you buy it. And the billionaires, their fossil fuel companies, and their utility companies have been the ones most responsible for climate change and wildfires that we see ravaging the state. As the head of the Department of Insurance, my core contribution would be to run the department around a core tenet, which is to put people before profits. That way, we could start to usher in a new era where we have a public insurer that is funded by a billionaire tax, where we can create a sustainable and a safety net that is sustainable for families across the state of California.
Thank you, Lalo. Next, Stephen Bradford.
Good evening, League of Women Voters and Stanislaus County, I should say, MPIF. My name is Steve Bradford, and yes, I'm a candidate for insurance commissioner. I've spent the last 26 years of my life as an elected public servant, not as a politician, working on issues that have impacted many folks who have been ignored. Is it a problem? Can you hear me? You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Stephen.
Oh, I thought you were saying you couldn't hear me. I've spent the last 26 years of my life as a public servant working to solve problems that have impacted communities throughout the state of California. I'm running for insurance commissioner, not because I need a job, not because I want to continue my political career, but because I was actively recruited by my constituents, by my colleagues, by business, by labor, to come in and do a job that needs someone who's worked across party lines, worked with both houses. I've served in both the Assembly and the Senate, and advancing policies that impact and improve the lives of Californians. That's what I will do as the next insurance commissioner. The crisis that we face today is not new. It didn't start with the LA fires or the Paradise fires. It's been a failure in the making for decades, when we see hundreds of thousands of families who have been faced with non-renewals, increased premiums, or being forced on the FAIR plan. As we all know, there's nothing fair about the FAIR plan. This is about stabilizing the market, bringing forth greater transparency, and letting consumers know if their rates are going up, it's not based on a profit, it's based on clear risk. I will bring forth modernization to the Department of Insurance. There are 1,400 men and women who work there every day who want nothing but the best, but they're under-resourced and understaffed in many areas. So I will make sure that we stabilize the industry and reinforce the Department of Insurance with the tools they need. Thank you. Steve Bradford.
Thank you, Steve. Next, Stacy Korsgaden.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Stacy Korsgaden, running for insurance commissioner. And I'm running because the insurance is the foundation of any community, of any family, and it's the foundation of our state. And right now it's in crisis. And I'm called to protect the people of California by restoring a competitive market, lowering risk through real mitigation, and ensuring that families are not left without choice and not crushed by higher costs. I have held an active insurance license since 1988, so that's nearly 40 years. And I've helped families and small businesses navigate the complexities of an insurance policy. And I've helped navigate through a devastating loss and also through an increasingly broken system. My approach is very straightforward and it's practical. Number one, we're going to restore a functioning marketplace. We're going to advocate and protect the consumer, crack down on fraud, and to ensure that the system works for people who pay into it. My career has been in insurance, and as a licensed insurance agent, I do agree that the Insurance Commission has lacked someone in that office that has the experience that I have, which is guiding a customer from before they even sign on a contract to all the way to the point of a claim and successfully navigating through that claim. My name is Stacy Korsgaden, and I look forward to telling you more about my plan. You can find that at stacyforinsurancecommissioner.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Next, Ben Allen.
There we go. Well, thank you. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, to all the partners who are hosting tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This race is about something that's really deeply personal to me, and I think for so many of our fellow Californians. When wildfire hit my community in Los Angeles, I saw firsthand the devastation that it caused, the long, difficult road that it made so many of my constituents and the families trying to recover. I've now worked with thousands of people in my district who have been trying to navigate the claims process, fighting to rebuild, dealing with uncertainty when it comes when the system doesn't work the way it should. I've been serving portions of Los Angeles now for over a decade in the California State Senate, representing major areas of LA, including the fire zone. That experience of going through the fire I've always worked on consumer issues and environmental protection issues, on ethics, transparency, political reform issues. But it's also really shaped a lot of my work in the legislature. I authored the Eliminate the List Act, which sought to increase the payouts from the insurance industry for in the cases of contents coverage, in the case of total loss. I'm working on expanding the non-renewal moratorium to protect small businesses. I focus on making sure that people aren't left behind after the disaster. I'm now running a lot of legislation to focus on making sure that people are given more time before they're cut off, but that there's a system in place for risk reduction, that we really start to scale our approach to reducing risk around the state. I've taken really big fights. I've delivered results for people, bringing people together and working on all sides, whether it's wildfire resilience, climate policy, consumer protections. That's what this job requires now, someone who's got the know-how, who's not going to have to know how to figure out their way around Sacramento. I'm proud to have the support of folks like Alex Padilla, Adam Schiff. They know my record. They know my ability to get things done. I'm also proud to have the support of California environmental voters and the California professional firefighters who know so much about this issue. As insurance commissioner, my focus is going to be clear. We got to stabilize the market so that companies stay and write policies. We need to modernize the system so that it reflects the real risks that we're facing now. And we've got to hold insurers accountable so that Californians know that the system will be there for them when it matters most. This isn't about choosing between.
Sorry, Ben. Unfortunately, you've exceeded the 2-minute time limit. So not to worry, there's more going to come. Next for opening statements, Keith Davis.
Thank you, Amy. I want to thank you and the League of Women Voters, as well as the PIFC, for having this forum today. My name is Keith Davis, and I am running for insurance commissioner. And I, as well as Stacy, am a licensed insurance agent. So what that means is I have seen firsthand the problems that we have with our insurance market here in California. What really drove me to want to run for this position is I came home one day from the office and I sat on my couch and I turned on the news and there were probably about 100 to 200 people behind a podium complaining how their homes had just burned down in the LA fires, and they weren't getting any kind of money, they weren't getting any kind of attention, and I felt really bad for them. I thought that was an opportunity for possibly our commissioner to come in and I feel like that ball was dropped in that. So as a licensed insurance agent, I've I've ran MVR reports. I've wrote policies before. I've wrote California Fair Plan policies. I've done everything that you can do as an insurance agent to know what's broken in the system. I think the problem is that we all from the outside in see that the system is broken, but if you haven't been inside the system to know how to fix it, then you're just coming with an outside perspective. And so what we need to do is we need to look at our wildfire risk score. We need to make sure that we're changing that in areas because the entire state, or about 90% of the state, is labeled as a high fire zone, when in San Diego over the last 4 years, they've had 10 fires. Riverside County has had maybe 100. And so I think we're maybe overreacting. We need to bring back some of the carriers that have left the state. We need to have some claim reform for the denied claims that are being done unjustly, as well as look at our auto insurance industry. So I'm boots on the ground. I know what needs to be fixed, and I am excited to be able to step into this ring to fight for the people of California with insurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next is Merritt Farron.
Hi there. Thank you, Amy, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this panel. This is such an important office, and it's an office that few Californians actually know even exists, but it will have a bigger impact on the financial well-being of families and businesses than I believe even the governor. I am in this race as the proud father of two. I'm a lifetime Californian. I am a Pacific Palisades fire survivor, and I'm a businessman. I spent over 30 years in, sorry, there was a disturbance there. I have over 30 years of experience in law, technology, and business, and it's that experience that I seek to bring to this office. This position is, in my view, a position that needs to be held by someone who has not just a law degree, but legal experience overseeing big legal teams handling tough matters. I agree with Patrick that the credentials are all important. We have been putting in this office individuals who don't have the background to succeed, and then we've been surprised that they're not succeeding. I've got a specific 3-point plan that I would seek to bring into service in office. First, we need to clean up the regulations, which are clearly getting in the way of innovation, and let insurance companies come in and let the good ones thrive. My background at Amazon and Disney includes work in innovation, and that would be key. That's number one. Number two, I've got a plan that I call Cal Reinsure that would eliminate the need for Fair Plan. And number three, I would make the office a principal advocate of community safety and go line by line to find the costs that are driving insurance up and bring them down. California is the world's great center of innovation. We've been lagging behind on the government side. We need to change that and allow California to lead in insurance reform, not follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Next, Jane Kim.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jane Kim, and I'm running for insurance commissioner to take on this $3.3 trillion industry and make it work for us, not billionaire corporations. The premiums are too high. They're canceling our coverage. And even if we have insurance, they fight our claims every step of the way. Meanwhile, property insurance is doing quite well. They, in 2024, made record profits at $170 billion, while their top 10 CEOs made $391 million collectively. Californians are very well regulated. In the meantime, we are required to have insurance to drive to work, to qualify for a mortgage, or to open any type of business. And so for that very reason, we must make insurance affordable and available. Otherwise, we're shutting everyday Californians out of our economy. And in the wealthiest state and the wealthiest nation, I know that we can do better. And I won't take a dime from insurance companies because this race shouldn't be up to them. It should be up to us. I will lower costs immediately by capping excess profits and CEO pay, hold companies accountable for denying coverage and valid claims, which we estimate at $1 billion to $3 billion every single year, build a real public insurance policy program that actually addresses risk, doesn't just price risk, and also invest in infrastructure to prevent the impacts of climate disaster, and to fight for guaranteed healthcare for every child in California, which I believe that we can do. My entire career, I've been fighting for working families. I'm a civil rights attorney, a community organizer, And the last 5 years, I've crisscrossed the state as a California director of the Working Families Party and as a California political director for Bernie Sanders. I also served on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and Board of Education, where I'm really proud to have made San Francisco the only city to make community college tuition free and pass $140 million annually to invest in early childhood education. I've been endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders, Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, Controller Malia Cohen, Dolores Huerta, and some of the largest unions in our state, including SEIU California, California Teachers Association, United Domestic Workers, the National Women's Political Caucus, California Young Democrats, and many more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jane. We're now going to transition into our Q&A. I'm going to do screen share again because, as I've shared, we've got some questions with some fairly technical language, and I want to ensure the candidates all have the opportunity to see the questions. It also gives the participants the opportunity to see as well. So, starting with Lalo Vargas. Why do you believe your background and experience is best suited for taking on the challenge of serving as California's next insurance commissioner?
So some of you may have seen in the news recently that the largest union, teachers union in the state, United Teachers Los Angeles, recently avoided a strike by settling a contract with the nation's second largest school district. I was part of the bargaining team. I was part of a large team of negotiators who, on behalf of 32,000 educators, settled a contract with a district that has an operating budget of $13.1 billion. We x-rayed their budget. We found a $5 billion reserve, a reserve that they were holding back from our students, from our children, from teachers and classrooms. These are much needed resources. And then we won that contract. We not only put money in people's pockets, we got money back into the classroom. And I cite this experience because the insurance commissioner of the state is the chief negotiator between the policyholders representing the state of California and the insurance companies. And we need someone who's able to take on the insurance companies to get what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalo. Next, Steve Bradford.
Thank you. I asked you to look at my record as an elected official over the last 26 years and some of the tough legislation I have authored, which is low-income solar for communities throughout the state of California, wiring our public housing for internet. I also served on the Insurance Commission Committee and authored a bill for uninsured and uninsured motorists, one of the toughest fights I ever had in the legislature. And even though we weren't successful in getting the language that I wanted, we were able to move it into a steady bill and study the issue that critically needed to be addressed. I have worked in corporate America and I've solved problems. I worked for a utility and solved problems. I also chaired utilities in both the Assembly and the Senate and brought down rates, electric rates for families throughout the state of California. Issued the first low-income solar bill in the state, and authored the bill to return the property to the Bruce family that had their property stolen 100 years ago in Manhattan Beach. I'm a fighter. I'm a person who shows up, and I've delivered. And I say, look at my record for the last 20 plus years.
Thank you, Steve. Stacey Korsgaden.
Yes, the primary role of the Department of Insurance as commissioner is to advocate for the consumer and advocate for them in regards to an insurance policy. I cannot imagine walking into that role and never selling a policy, knowing a policy. I've spent my career, which has been about 38 years, navigating and working around clients, around claims. The contracts are they're complicated, and that the experience that I have will help me advocate for the customer. So the primary role is to regulate insurance companies. You have to know what insurance is and what it does. The next role is to license new licensees and insurance companies and to crack down on fraud. All of that takes an overall large amount of knowledge that I've accumulated over my career. And that's why I'm qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. Next, Ben Allen.
Yeah, when the fires hit, hearing through the community that I had represented in the state Senate for over a decade, we quickly got to work. I was helping hundreds and hundreds of people get just successfully navigate insurance claims. That gave me a front row seat to just all of the dysfunction of our broken system. And I got to see what failure looks like. I mean, from my perspective, we have to do better. We've got to have an insurance commissioner who cares about protecting consumers, safeguarding the environment, making government more accountable to people. I've got a track record of delivering really important results for the state in my over a decade in the legislature. I've taken on insurance industry lobbyists and beaten them, passed some of the nation's strongest consumer protection laws in a variety of different areas of policy. I've led efforts to invest our $10 billion from the bond in wildfire prevention and water infrastructure improvements, climate resilience, all things that I wish we'd had in place when the fires hit. For me, it's about putting consumers first, holding polluters accountable, making corporate polluters financially responsible, fair treatment after disasters, preventing future disasters. That's the sort of work that I've been working on in the legislature, and I want to bring to this office.
My apologies. Next is Keith Davis.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Well, what qualifies me is that I'm boots on the ground. I'm firsthand in the system to know what's wrong. I could never run for LA school superintendent, and I've never been a teacher, or I've never been in that system. How do you know what's wrong with the California Fair Plan if you've never wrote a California Fair Plan policy? You see, the problem is that we've had individuals that have gone into these positions who know nothing about the inside of what's going on. And that sets me apart, is that I know what's wrong with the system. I've wrote these policies. I even wrote a California Fair Plan policy yesterday. And so at this point, California is in a crucial point where we're going to have to decide, do we want to continue to have licensed professional in other professions take over this position? Or do we want somebody who knows what's wrong, who cares for the people, and is looking to make a change and will make a change? And that is why I'm qualified to do this.
Thank you, Keith. Next, Merritt Farron.
Thank you, Amy. I believe this question is the single most important question that every voter should be asking him or herself when they vote. There is no other question that even comes close. We are in the crisis we're in because we've been putting individuals into this incredibly important role who don't have the appropriate background. After the fires, I jumped into the State Farm rate proceedings as a citizen intervener. In that process, I had an opportunity to work closely with the department and see how it functions. I believe extremely strongly that this position requires a senior lawyer and an executive who has business experience running technology. My background at Disney included being the general counsel of Disneyland, where I oversaw legal, guest claims, and security. Tough tasks. That's the kind of leadership that we need and direction that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Next, Jane Kim.
Many politicians and leaders talk about the affordability crisis here in California, but we all know that expensive homes, expensive groceries, expensive insurance is a crisis of political courage. And you will hear many different visions on how we're going to move forward today. And if you're looking for an insurance commissioner that's just going to tinker with the system, I'm not your candidate. I'm excited to run for this office because I think this very under the radar, under leveraged office could be a powerful platform for working families and everyday people to propose bold and practical ideas to reimagine how we can make California work for all of us. My entire career, I've been fighting for working families, passing the first $15 minimum wage ordinance, making San Francisco the only city to make community college tuition free, passing the largest municipal investment, making childcare affordable for every working class and middle class family. This is a type of leadership that I think that we're going to need. And I don't think that we're in the situation that we're in because we didn't elect an actuary to this office. What we need is a political leader who can manage a large department, make really important decisions, negotiate with colleagues and multiple offices and stakeholders, including electeds, community leaders, and labor leaders, and to push big reform that's going to make this make insurance work for all of us.
Thank you. Patrick Wolf.
I thank you very much. Thanks for the question. So I think my background actually has given me a very broad and deep set of experiences that make me qualified for this. As I said early in my career, from 2001 to 2005, I spent 4 years building and overseeing an insurance brokerage, and I really got to see how the insurance works, how the industry works. I work with customers, insurance companies, and that gave me very, very valuable experience to understand how insurance operates. And then I spent many years as a financial analyst, and I analyzed insurance companies from not just property and casualty, life and health as well. That financial aspect is very important. But I also ran my own business. You want to negotiate, trust me, anybody who's a business person knows if you have your own business, you know what negotiation is. You're negotiating everything. I've managed teams of people. I've also been very involved in public policy. I actually started a charity investor conference that now has raised over $4 million since 2010. But I've also been very involved in housing politics and public schools and other political activities in San Francisco and the state of California, which has given me experience, but also broadened my network. So I know these people. And I think that experience is very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Question number 2, we'll start with Steve Bradford. What will your top priorities be during your first 90 days in office? And what is your vision for a successful first term?
My first 90 days, I want to sit down with as many of the Department of Insurance employees, the men and women who do this work every day, who are charged with standing this department up, to make sure I hear them, I see them, and understand what their needs are in order for them to make sure that this department and this insurance works for all Californians. And many times they're ignored in this process. I won't ignore them. I've been, like I say, a collaborator. I've worked with a variety of people. I also want to sit down with the insurance industry as well and understand what some of those touch points are for them and what they need in order to stay in California. This is the third largest insurance industry in the nation. They want to be here. We got to make sure that we understand what some of those issues are that are causing them to want to leave California. And I hear the delay in rate approvals. What I would consider a success in my first year is a depopulation of the FAIR plan, quicker rate reviews, and greater transparency and efficiency in that department and in the industry for all of Californians.
Thank you, Steve. Stacy Korsgaden.
So first, we have to understand why we are in the place that we are in right now. And I've traveled the state of California, and it's all the same, that insurance is too expensive or they don't have access to it. And we have to ask ourselves why. So the very first 90 days, what I will work on is in the Department of Insurance. We have to know that in the state of California, we are not insurable. What do I mean by that? We talk about climate change, but we are not managing our climate. We talk about crime, but we have crime is on the rise in California. We have to get our risk under control. So I will be the chief communicator about that. I also will audit the Department of Insurance, get to know the different roles. And the number 3, the most important, is I will open up a new business division, welcoming in new insurance capital and companies into the state of California. That will give us choice and more affordability.
Thank you, Stacy. Ben Allen.
Yeah, I think success looks like 4 years from now that we're not talking about a crisis, but we're talking about progress. How are we going to do that? We have to stabilize the market, and we have to lower premiums by rewarding resilience. This is risk reduction and better preparedness. So we have to modernize the rate setting process with wildfire catastrophe modeling, transparent reinsurance costs, potentially backed up by the state, paired with some really strong consumer safeguards. We've got to speed up the rate reviews so that decisions take months and not years. We got to scale up home and neighborhood community-wide risk reduction and really enforce insurer participation in these efforts and create a really clear pathway for homeowners to transition off of the FAIR plan after they complete these resilience upgrades in their communities. We've also got to work to reduce climate-driven financial risk and stop insurers from worsening the problem. That's a whole kind of effort that's underway in the legislature right now. And then, of course, protecting consumers and disaster survivors with greater accountability and transparency, speeding up claims, strengthening fair plan oversight, modernizing the customer service component of the department, creating an independent consumer advocate. A lot more, but I know I got to stop.
Thank you. Keith Davis.
Well, in my first 90 days, the first thing we need to do is look at the wildfire risk model that the state has. Because again, we have new homeowners who are trying to go in and purchase a home and they get qualified for the loan. They go and get a quote for the insurance and they get a sticker shock seeing how much it's going to cost. That has to be reassessed. I understand the LA fires was a tragedy of its own kind. But I think the state is overreacting by labeling most of the state a wildfire risk hazard. So that's the first thing we need to do. Then we need to also take a look at our auto policies and auto insurance, because that has jumped up over 75% over the past 4 years. Home insurance has jumped up 300% over the past 4 years. If you owned a home 4 years ago, you know how much you were paying for insurance then, and I guarantee you it's 4 times that amount today. So the first thing is to make sure that we are looking at the home insurance market, the fire line score, lowering it so people can get into these homes. And then we also need to take a look at our auto insurance and see how we can combat these high premiums and make it right for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Merritt Farron.
Yes, thank you. So we have an affordability crisis in our state that goes beyond insurance, but insurance is a big part of it. So my goal for success would be getting prices down for consumers. They urgently need that, and they urgently need more insurance options. My initial time in office would be to jump in a way that the insurance commissioner hasn't done. I have asked repeatedly that folks urge Ricardo Lara to resign because there are opportunities that he could be taking today to help people in the Eden fires and in the Palisades fire zone, which he has not taken. I would jump straight in, and here's just a couple examples. The homeowners have been left to fight one by one with insurance companies about appropriate rebuild costs. I would have, within 2 weeks, gotten committees together of builders to come up with the appropriate price ranges for insurance companies to use when estimating rebuild costs. There are executive actions like that the commissioner can and should take. I would take those day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Jane Kim.
On day one, I would introduce 3 plans. 1, to expand California's already existing nonprofit low-cost auto insurance to more Californians. 2, to introduce a study for a public guaranteed home disaster insurance program for all Californians, where we're able to keep some of those premium dollars within the state and then invest it back in us. 3, introduce a plan for Medicare for every child in California. But in terms of rules that I would pursue as insurance commissioner, 1 is to show us where the money goes, require insurers to publicly disclose how much of their premiums they spent on claims versus marketing, executive pay, and investments and Super Bowl ads. 2, your home insurance deserves the same protection as your auto insurance. Under current law, insurance are only allowed to drop you for non-coverage, fraud, or if you've made your car more dangerous. We should do the same for homes. 2nd, if they write it here, they should write it for everyone. If they're writing auto insurance in your zip code, they should be writing home insurance as well. And then we got to make claims faster and more fair. Don't punish people for using insurance, the very service that they bought. I will freeze your rates and your coverage when you file a claim. And 2, every day that insurer underpays, denies, or delays a valid claim, they have to pay you interest.
Thank you, Jane. Patrick Wolf.
Thank you. Well, my first priority in the first 90 days, much like what Stephen said, I intend to listen. I've been doing a lot of talking so far, and if I'm elected insurance commissioner, I'll be doing a lot more talking. People will know my plans, my ideas, my priorities. This is a department of 1,400 people. Many have been there for decades. It's extremely important to understand them, to understand their perspective, to learn from them, and to build consensus within the organization. That will absolutely be my first priority as we move forward to make lasting change. Now, in terms of how my vision for a successful 4 years, it's that insurance is available. It's that insurance is competitive, pricing is fair, and you know that you will be well treated by insurance companies. And if you're not, you know that they'll be held accountable. Now, all of that doesn't mean the price will come down as much as it needs to. That will be on the way to doing that, but that will be a multi-year effort because that does require tackling the drivers of risk going up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Lalo Vargas.
Yeah, 90 days is enough to deal with the most urgent issues. And when I think of urgent issues, I think about how 1 year after the LA fires, 70% of folks who were originally displaced in those fires were still displaced as of January. And so the insurance commissioner can immediately issue a moratorium on non-renewals, meaning your insurer cannot drop you. That should be restored for survivors of the LA fires. I will launch an audit of the last 5 years of rate increases for the state's largest insurers and establish guidelines to freeze and roll back rates so that people pay less in their premiums. Would also pursue recommending to the Attorney General criminal charges for insurance companies which are breaking the insurance code. They're breaking the law by undercutting claims, by rotating adjusters, and other loopholes. These loopholes need to be closed. And so I would pursue, in general, enforcement and accountability as a way to provide full compensation for fire survivors and to create a pathway to build a public insurer for healthcare and for property and casualty in the state of California.
Thank you, Lalo. All right, question number 3. The California insurance market has experienced a crisis of availability of admitted market coverage. What do you see as the root cause of declining insurance availability? And what will you do about this as insurance commissioner? Starting with Stacey Korsgaden.
Well, this is my favorite question because of my experience of being an insurance agent and providing coverage. The insurance commissioner I feel, has been very absent in this. The marketplace, why we do not have market coverage and we see a declining availability, there's a lot of reasons, but number one, because of price controls that were set on because of Prop 103 that was voted in 1988, and overregulation, that's restricting the marketplace. So when you have those factors, it's known that what you have is scarcity of product and increased pricing. So I would be more inclined to have a market that adjusts to the risk. In other words, companies should be able to price to the risk. Simultaneously, I will have a new business division at the Department of Insurance. Capital wants to come, and new companies want to come to California to compete, and that's how we manage the rates.
Thank you, Stacey. Ben Allen.
Yeah, we need to focus intensely on trying to make the situation better, so as to be able to have insurers come back and offer affordable and available insurance, robust insurance. A lot of that's going to ultimately focus on risk reduction on the long term, but in the shorter term, it's about making. I think we can open up the market a little bit further. I think we need to dramatically speed up the rate review process. We need to really, really invest in insurance fraud enforcement. That's become a major cost driver that is basically harming everybody at the expense because of a few bad actors. And so the department has a role to play on that topic. On the long term, we need to be really thinking about a policy and culture shift toward reducing risk, toward reducing our susceptibility to fires and other climate-related risks. And I think that this is where the insurance commissioner is going to be so important. I don't think we can just demand of the insurance industry that they have to go out and insure all these high-risk areas around the state without real investment in risk reduction. The flip side is I don't think we can ask people to invest in risk reduction without knowing that there's going to be affordable insurance on the back end. The insurance commissioner is going to have to play a big role in bringing the insurance industry to the table and making sure that they reward real, meaningful risk reduction around the state.
Thank you. Keith Davis.
Well, the crisis availability is strictly because of one thing. The carriers do not have confidence in California anymore. And I think we're starting to see that trend. And what we have to do is we have to sit down with the current carriers that we have now. We have to also sit down with the carriers who have left and just have a conversation. I think what the people of California keep hearing is about rate increases but they don't hear about us actually sitting down to figure out what is the problem. How can we bring confidence to the carriers to come back into the state while still making sure we're protecting the consumers and watching that price point? And so the problem is confidence. They have no confidence in our state. And as commissioner, I want to bring confidence back to those carriers to feel comfortable coming back into the state and operating and creating more deregulation so that people can have more options and lower prices.
Thank you, Keith. Merritt Farron.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith, for that intro. So I completely agree that carriers do not have confidence in our state. And quite frankly, how can they? My home was not even in a fire zone. Most of the Pacific Palisades was not in a fire zone. It burned down because of massive negligence by our elected officials, including, I'm sorry, Senator Allen, yourself. You were in a position, you're one of the few individuals elected to office to protect the community, and you failed to do that. Insurers, of course, are spooked. If the community is going to burn down due to lack of water in the fire hydrants, and is Carlsbad going to burn down, Ventura, et cetera? That's number one. I would come out with a set of standards for communities and cities to abide by to protect their citizens. And then number two, absolutely, the regulations are a mess and they are stopping innovation. We have to clean them up and let the companies innovate on behalf of consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Jane Kim.
So there are two reasons for what we're seeing in the insurance industry today, which is that prices are going up and they're canceling our coverage. So the number one reason is risk has actually gone up in the last 50-ish years. We used to have a billion dollar storm every 4 months. We now have one every 3 weeks. And the second reason is just flat out greed. I had mentioned that the property and casualty insurance industry in 2024 made $170 billion, and they made even more last year. And the way they do that is by canceling coverage on all the homes that they view as sick or with pre-existing conditions. Then they raise premiums on all the healthy, non-risky homes, saying that the reason is climate disaster, even though they've already dropped all of their risk. And then third, they deny, delay, and underpay valid claims at the tune of $1 billion to $3 billion every year that they steal from hardworking Californians. So we don't have to guess as to what the best response to that is, because we can just look around the world. Texas has one of the most deregulated insurance systems, and their home insurance prices are on average $4,000 more. And we can look at countries that have instituted single-payer public insurance programs that are nonprofit, and they, I believe, are doing a better job of pricing risk and addressing it.
Thank you, Jane. Patrick Wolf.
Thank you. So the root cause of the availability crisis for home insurance in particular is the intersection of rising risk because of climate change, particularly through the last decade of 2010s. And that intersected with a set of rules that did not allow the insurance companies to underwrite rationally. Specifically, as risk was going up, you don't always get a catastrophic fire, thank God. But in 2017, 2018, there were catastrophic fires, and the insurance companies realized they had to be able to use forward-looking models, not just a historical look back. They had to do some other things, and the rules didn't let them. Okay, fast forward. The Department of Insurance is starting to make progress with what's called the Sustainable Insurance Strategy, which is allowing insurance companies to use forward-looking models, allowing them to count the cost of reinsurance. This is forward progress. We also need to do a better job of radically streamlining the time in which these filings get reviewed. We also need to do a much better job of incentivizing the insurance companies to tell us what's going to reduce risk. And very quickly, the state needs to do a much better job of managing its land to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire.
Thank you, Patrick. Lalo Vargas.
The current insurance commissioner launched the Sustainable Insurance Strategy, which was a way to sort of court the insurance companies and get them to write more policies. And at the core of this strategy was deregulation. But we don't have anything to show for it. I mean, very few new policies have been written, and insurance companies have gotten double-digit rate increases. And my colleagues have brought up a lot of market solutions for the availability crisis. But we need to explore the non-market solutions. The market has proven that it is unstable and too volatile to really be a stable foundation and safety net for California families. A public insurer doesn't have the problem of having to raise enough money in premiums to pay out everyone's claims, and then also to pay out multi-million-dollar CEO salaries to pay armies of adjusters to undercut our claims. That's why a public insurer is really the only option if we want to increase availability of insurance for all Californians, not just the very, very wealthy.
Thank you, Lalo. Steve Bradford.
Thank you. Again, a report just came out 2 weeks ago from the Government Accountability Office, and it said the #1 driver in non-renewals and increased rates is the delay. So it takes far too long. It's only one other state that takes longer than California to get rate approvals, and that's Colorado. So we have to bring forth efficiency to the rate making and reviews, also claim reviews. Also, it takes far too long internally to review claims that victims of fires or whatever have submitted. And I agree with Mr. Wolf. We need a gold standard on what resiliency looks like. We need to do a better job at land management. I've heard it from the Cal Fire. I heard it from our Native American brothers and sisters. We no longer manage our land, and that creates too much of a risk. And I've also heard from the reassurers why some of the reasons why the insurance companies are leaving and not writing, because they cannot get insurance because the reassurers don't think we're factoring in climate and those climate risks that exist right now.
Thank you, Steve. All right, next question. Utilities have been responsible for many of the costliest wildfires in the state's recent history. What is your position on maintaining or changing California's current liability structure for utilities, including inverse condemnation, and should utilities continue to be held fully responsible for the wildfire damage they cause? First, Ben Allen.
Well, this is a very tricky question. Now, what I would say is that I believe that let's talk for a second, right? We basically task the utilities with covering people all over the state, including in very high risk areas, and then we hold them 100%. Then we hold them accountable when something goes wrong, even if they haven't met a negligence standard, even if just something goes wrong with their equipment. So it's one of the reasons why we have such high utility rates. It's one of the reasons why we are all having to pay more and more into this wildfire fund, which is basically bailing out the utility side liability associated with these major fires. We absolutely need to be pushing the utilities much more aggressively on their entire cost structure. I'm actually running a bill right now calling on more information so that the PUC that oversees their rate structure takes in more information into account when they're giving them their rate increases. We also need them to invest much more in risk reduction. But that's where the focus ought to be. I mean, I'm all for holding them more accountable, but I also think we need to do so in a way that doesn't just save us on the insurance rate side and just increases our rates on the utility side. So we got to be mindful of that as we craft a proper.
Thank you, Ben. Keith Davis.
Yes, I absolutely believe that utility companies that are responsible for some of these catastrophic events should be held responsible. Now it's a slippery slope that we're walking on, because then what's going to end up happening is the utility companies are going to say, well, now that we have to cover a large part of the claims, which again is going to help the insurance carriers to have a little more confidence in the state. Now, anytime there's a wind event, we're not going to have power. In my home for the past 3 Thanksgivings, we've had no power because it's been a wind event, and the utility companies said we're shutting off the power to prevent a wildfire. So it's a slippery slope. We have to make sure that we're walking that fine line and doing the right thing. But I absolutely believe 100% that if these catastrophic events are created by the utility companies, they must be held responsible. They must indemnify, and we must continue to figure out ways to make that system better. So that way they're not taking the brunt of it, but they have to be responsible for the things that they cause.
Thank you, Keith. Merritt Farron.
Yes. So as a lawyer, I have to say I'm not a fan of driving public policy with litigation if there's a better way. There is a better way here that is a more proactive stance by the state working with utilities to make sure that they're doing what needs to be done to prevent fires. That's number one. Number two, I think it's actually interesting to talk about utilities because I think that we need to understand insurance now, given where it's gotten, to be something that is as important for the citizens of California and businesses at a reasonable price as water and electricity, right? I don't advocate, like some others on the panel, that we introduce a public ownership of insurance. That wouldn't work. But I think we have to take it as seriously as utilities, and we have to work to find a way to get the insurance here by bringing safety to our communities and working with the utilities to ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Jane Kim.
So the question here is, if a utility's equipment is known to have caused the wildfire, should they be legally liable, even if there was no negligence involved? Generally and broadly, I support California's current position, which is holding utilities accountable because it provides economic incentive to make sure that utilities are doing everything that they can to help prevent future fires from happening, and making sure that they are undergrounding and working on different types of preventative measures that can make sure that we don't have big wildfires in the future. And every dollar that we spend today in preventing a wildfire saves us at least $6 in the future in FEMA dollars, taxpayer dollars, and personal dollars that are put in. That being said, those costs are then passed on to consumers. And that is the real issue. And Senator Ben Allen had brought that up. And one of the things that I want to explore is that in the case of negligence, how can we transfer more of that cost risk to shareholders instead of to the consumers?
Thank you, Jane. Patrick Wolf.
Thank you. I do want to emphasize this is not an area that's actually under the authority of the insurance commissioner, but it is obviously relevant. I think most people who really look at this agree that California's inverse condemnation standard is quite problematic, but it's the current interpretation of California's constitution, so it's not just something that can be easily or quickly changed. So we have to deal with it. Clearly, I agree with Ben wholeheartedly. The utilities need to be pushed and held accountable to invest in their infrastructure. Here in San Francisco, we like to say, if you count the ampersand, PG&E is a four-letter word. So we have our issues with the utilities. But I want to emphasize something. I want to pick up on a point Jane was making. I completely agree you need the incentives, right, to reduce wildfire risk, but you need to focus on the fuel, not the spark. Utilities don't cause the majority of fires, and if you have fuel that is combustible, there will be a spark. That's why the fuel is the most important thing, although, of course, the utilities need to be made to modernize and upgrade their infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Lalo Vargas.
Yeah, I'm running as a socialist with the Peace and Freedom Party because I believe that a lot of the crises we've been talking about today, including this one, is the root of it is the profit motive, the system of capitalism where profit is king. And that incentivizes insurance companies to engage in their criminal behaviors. It also incentivizes the largest utility companies, which are essentially monopolies in the state of California, to conduct themselves with criminal negligence. I mean, if due to their negligence, due to the profit motive, they are not maintaining power lines how they're supposed to, then they're essentially committing arson when they do ignite a fire. So I think they should be held fully responsible for their role in the crisis. And at the end of the day, just like the fossil fuel companies, the utility companies are also owned by billionaires. I would be for, like creating a public insurer, I would also be for nationalizing the utilities. But that's definitely outside of the purview of the insurance commissioner. I would still push for it because I don't think regular Californians should be footing the bill of someone else's crisis.
Thank you, Lalo. Steve Bradford.
Thank you. Where the utility company is clearly at fault, yes, they should be held accountable. But I want to qualify this because I've worked for a utility company. I worked for a utility company for 12 years. So I know what they do well and I know what they do poorly. And one of the biggest challenges is, as I think one of my opponents stated, about the fuel out there. Southern California Edison is very much committed in all the utilities of line clearing, but many times they have trouble accessing the properties in order to clear lines. I represented urban areas where we had challenges getting on in a residential street to get in their backyard to clear a line because the family wouldn't let us have access. Our tree trimming crew couldn't get online. Imagine in rural areas and hundreds of acres of lands where we've heard stories where you have 40-foot timber and they can't get on the land to clear the line to make sure that they don't fall into the bushes. That's what's happening right now. We have to do a better job at land management, as Mr. Wolf said, and avoid eradicating the fuel that's causing some of this fire.
Thank you, Steve. Stacy Korsgaden.
Thank you. To answer the question, as far as insurance goes, the entity or the person, whatever the situation, large or small, should pay for the claim. I would like to, though, recognize that I'm so glad that we as a group are talking about risk and risk assessment. That's what insurance covers. And when we talk about the state of California owns 50% of our land. And our state leaders have made decisions based on environmental policies. We love the environment as Californians. And we have not done a good job in the name of climate change. Whenever I hear climate change, I want to say equals, this is what we're going to do about it. This is how we're going to manage it. And the problem that we see, and as insurance commissioner, I will be the voice of reason saying we need to manage our lands, our waters, so that the state of California will then be an attractive marketplace for insurance companies to come and flood the state of California. That will lower the price. Government doesn't lower the price, competition does it every time.
Thank you, Stacy. Our next question. California received good news Monday that new business for the FAIR Plan decreased 26% in the first half of fiscal year 2026. Do you support Commissioner Lara's Sustainable Insurance Strategy, SIS, which included reforms like allowing insurers to use catastrophe modeling and include their reinsurance costs in rate filings, in exchange for writing more policies in high-risk fire zones? 8 insurers have made SIS rate filings since this became available in July, and 5 of those have been approved by CDI. First, Keith Davis.
Well, I want to start by saying I don't necessarily support the catastrophe modeling because what it does is it's given the insurance companies a valid reason to charge you more money. Now, on this topic here, I'm going to differ than every single one of my constituents here by saying that I actually think that the California FAIR Plan has carried us in the right way. You see, unless you're writing the policies, you don't know. My home insurance policy was $3,600, but the California FAIR Plan allows you to dictate which coverage you want. I filed claims through the FAIR Plan. They do pay. They have been well, but they have this bad reputation. And so what I would do is I'd want to go in and try to look to see how we can better the California FAIR Plan. Because again, with the coverages that they're offering us, yes, you have to get an attachment policy to it, a difference in conditions policy, but the premiums are so much lower, it allows Californians to save money while still making sure their home is protected. So I don't necessarily agree with the rate increases because it's given the insurance companies a legal right to charge you more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Merritt Farron.
Yes, so I certainly agree with the direction of the sustainable.
Merritt, I want to interrupt you. In fairness, we've lost your audio.
I suggested that if State Farm wanted to raise to have a premium product for, sorry, there's a lot of messages flashing on my screen.
Merritt, I want you to stop. We lost your audio, so we did not benefit from hearing your answer. So will you give me a test again? Just give me a test, Mike.
Got it. Thank you very
Okay,
much. Can
all
you hear
right.
me now?
We can, and in
Okay.
fairness, we're going to reset the clock and we're going to let you start your answer from the top, okay?
Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. All right. Sorry for the technical glitch. So my answer is yes. I believe that the strategy is appropriate. We need to allow insurance companies to price risk appropriately. That's key. At the same time, we need to go further, right? We need to do more than that to allow more flexibility. When I was intervening in the State Farm rate proceedings, to intervene, I had to have a hearing in front of a judge. State Farm objected. The California Department of Insurance objected. One of the things that I suggested during the hearing was that if State Farm wanted to propose a premium product at a premium price that would allow people to pay more and get an immediate payout in the event that they lost their home, that they should be allowed to do that. And the lawyer for State Farm raised her hand and said, "That's very interesting, Merritt Farron. We've been trying to do that for years. The Department of Insurance won't allow us to do so." So we have to open up our regulations, let new insurance companies, big and small, innovate and bring new products at better prices for consumers. That's our key. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Jane Kim.
So I support the strategy's goal, which is to stabilize our market and find ways to provide economic incentives for insurers to provide more coverage to Californians. But the New York Times, the LA Times, the San Francisco Chronicle found that in the 6 months after the deal was announced that California's 3 largest insurance group actually dropped 50,000 policies into the FAIR plan. So what they got was they got the higher rates, more flexibility, and they dropped more plans because there were a lot of loopholes in the sustainable insurance strategies. So it's great that some of that is coming now backwards. But I think what we come back to is the question of how do we actually create more affordability and more coverage? We can allow companies to raise rates that may provide more availability. We can deregulate like Texas, where rates have gone sky high. Or we can actually think about a different model, which is a public insurance program, where we actually keep those dollars. We invest it in the bond market like the insurance industry. And instead of having the excess billions of capitals go back to shareholders, which is just what happened last week after major quarterly earnings for the property and casualty insurance industry, we actually take those dollars and invest it back in fireproofing and floodproofing and home hardening. The only
Patrick Wolf.
Thank you. So I do support the sustainable insurance strategy, as I said earlier. However, I do have some critiques with how it's been operating. And in particular, let me pick up on that the problem that Jane had raised. Because the way that they set the rules is you had to write 85% in risky areas in return for every 100%. But that, whether you're writing a risky area, is whether you were on a list of risky zip codes. Well, it turns out just being on a list of risky zip codes doesn't necessarily mean you're actually more risky. And so first movers have been able to cherry pick safe households and leave the risky households for other insurance companies. So I think there are problems with the design, and I think there's more work that needs to be done. But yes, in general, allowing insurance companies to use catastrophe modeling to count the cost of reinsurance, which is a real cost, which is incredibly important for broadening market access. Yes, those things are important. Very quickly, last thing I want to say, the rate of increase has gone down, but the FAIR plan is still increasing. So we really need to drop the time it takes to submit rate filings and all the other things we've been talking about.
Thank you, Patrick. Lalo Vargas.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I was just about to say the same thing, which is that the 26% decrease is a decrease in the number of people who are on the FAIR plan, and there was 600,000 people, but it's not a decrease in rates. And I was speaking to an older couple in Altadena. They were dropped by their insurer and were paying before under $4,000 a year for their home insurance, and they were forced to go on FAIR. And on FAIR, they were paying close to $10,000. And this is for a couple that is on a fixed income. There are so many families out there like this. And I already expressed disapproval for the sustainable insurance strategy. I still disapprove of it because at the core of it, it's passing the cost of the climate crisis onto ordinary people. Folks in Altadena, in LA, across the state, who should not be paying for someone else's bill. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Lalo. Steve Bradford.
Yes, I appreciate the question, and I do support the sustainable insurance strategy. And I too received a report on Monday showing a depopulation of the FAIR plan and increased writing of policies by our traditional insurers. I do agree with I think Patrick Wolf in stating we need to do a closer examination of where they're writing these policies. Just because you're in a zip code, we need to desegregate these communities, because just because you're in one zip code doesn't mean you're in a fire risk area. And I've heard it from the rural farmers and things of that, folks like that, who say their land is completely clear of any type of real vegetation other than their crops, no trees on their property, and they're still considered in a high risk area, even though the forest is probably not hundreds of miles, but at least 10, 15 miles away from where their property is. So I think we need to be more specific on how we define risk areas, but I do believe the policy is working, and I would totally support it as commissioner.
Thank you, Steve. Stacy Korsgaden.
Thank you. Yes, there are parts of the sustainable insurance strategy. I think that it was very effective in changing a law in 1988 that I never agreed with, Prop 103. But for right now, it is changing and upgrading and allowing some positive changes in the marketplace. Insurance tells a story in California. Insurance, because it's not affordable and it's not accessible, tells us a story that something is wrong. And what is wrong is we are not taking care of the rising risk environment that we have in California. Now, there's some here that believe that government is the solution. I am on the opposite spectrum. I believe that competition and market competition to the consumer is the way to go. Companies will flock to the state of California, the so-called the fourth largest economy in the world. They will flock to California when the environment, quote unquote, the environment is correct.
All right, my friends, it's hard to believe, but this will be our last question. With 8 of you, we definitely have a timing factor. So here we go. Our last. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ben. I am so sorry. You caught me. That is my error. My apologies. I was trying to.
No, it's all good. I know I'm last. So much has already been said, and
Thank you, Ben.
I just want to emphasize the fact that that the risk reduction is so important. It's what, I'm happy about people coming off of the FAIR plan. Obviously, it's what we have to do on the long term. But the comments that have been made before are absolutely correct about how the journalism has showed that this sustainable insurance strategy allowed for a lot of places to pass off as high risk when they weren't truly high risk. Now, that being said, I'm really glad that we're now allowing for catastrophic modeling. The flip side is I think it needs to be transparent. And that's why we put forward a public model that we've now created in legislation that's now starting to build out, that is going to incorporate academics and fire scientists, that will provide a transparent and truly kind of broadly sourced, independently sourced catastrophe model that should inform how we go forward with the strategy. Because ultimately, it's about making sure that we're reducing risk to bring carriers back and not putting risk on the state budget, which of course is what our previous strategy had done.
Thank you, Ben. My apologies again. Now we're on to the last question. All right, my friends, here we go. Do you think Prop 103, passed in 1988, has helped or hurt policy availability? And we will start with Merritt Barron.
Thank you. Well, I love starting on this since I was in the State Farm rate proceedings as a result of Prop 103. So I had a chance to look at it, to live under the rate approval process that was created on top of it. So the short answer is Prop 103 has not helped policy availability. But Prop 103 at the same time is simple and serves an important purpose. It gives the state a check on insurance increases by insurers. The proposition itself is very simple. It essentially says that the rates that there are approved should be fair for consumers and fair for insurers. The problem is not from what that we've had, is not from Prop 103, but from the regulations built on top of Prop 103. Those are what need to be stripped away. The essential piece needs to stay. And again, we need to allow the innovation then to come that Prop 103 has in fact helped block.
Thank you, Merritt. Jane Kim.
What Prop 103 has really done for Californians is that it has protected Californians from the incredible rate increases that we've seen in the majority of states across the country. I had mentioned that we don't actually really need to hypothesize what deregulation would do, as some folks here are saying. We know what it does. In states like Texas and Nebraska that barely regulates insurance rates and insurance industries, their home insurance is on average $4,000 more than it is here in California. California is roughly at the middle of the pack. In answer to your question, though, Prop 103 may not have supported more availability, but it's certainly, even as expensive as it has become, has assisted with affordability. And having strong regulations is how we protect consumers. Prop 103 created this office to be an elected office, one of the 11 elected insurance commissioners in the country, so that we can make rates more affordable to Californians and to ensure that claims are paid quickly and fairly. And so Prop 103 has created the only backstop between everyday consumers and this trillion-dollar industry that has zero federal oversight.
Thank you, Jane. Patrick Wolf.
There we go. Boy, you asked these questions that we could go a whole day on. Here's what I would say on Proposition 103. I agree with Merritt, I think, to some degree on this, which is I don't think it's Proposition 103 itself per se. I think it's the way proposition has been, the regulations, as Merritt was saying, have been developed over time, and critically, how the regulations have been administered and interpreted and enforced over time. And so, again, I'll come back to the insurance availability crisis that we have right now is because the way Proposition 103 was interpreted and implemented didn't allow the insurance companies to use forward-looking models. And when that intersected with the upward pressures of risk from climate change, that's what caused insurance companies to leave. But that doesn't mean Proposition 103 itself is the problem. And I'll end on this. Proposition 103 says insurance rates should be neither excessive nor inadequate nor unfairly discriminatory. I think that is exactly correct.
Thank you, Patrick. Lalo Vargas.
When Prop 103 was approved by the majority of voters in California, Californians had two choices. They were either going to continue to have an insurance commissioner that was appointed as opposed to elected, and they were going to be required to have automobile insurance, which they were paying exorbitant prices for. When Prop 103 was passed, it established this office is elected. That's the reason why we're here today. And it actually rolled back rates for people for the first time in a long time. So I think we should protect Prop 103. It established the guardrails necessary to keep the insurance companies accountable. But now we have to actually use the Office of the Insurance Commissioner to enforce that, to enforce Prop 103 and continue to pursue enforcement and accountability for the insurance executives so that they don't continue to scam Californians. That's something that was won by organized working class people from Consumer Watchdog and United Policyholders, going door to door, talking to their neighbors, getting signatures. That's the kind of movement that we need for policyholders in the state. Again, that's how we're going to get these reforms that we need.
Thank you, Lalo. Steve Bradford.
Proposition 103 has worked. It has done what it was intended to do, suppress rates. Unfortunately, we live in the most expensive state in California, and you would think that we would have the highest rates in the nation. We don't. There's 19 other states that have rates higher than California. So that clearly shows that Proposition 103 has done what it was intended to do. The only problem is that 38 years ago, we weren't talking about climate change. We weren't talking about many of those issues that are impacting insurance in California the way it is today. And that's what we're not doing. We're not factoring in what the shift in its climate and environment and all these other things. So Prop 103 is working, but it needs to be modernized. And yet, as stated, it created an elected insurance commissioner. In a way, it politicized some of the decisions because you've had insurance commissioners in the past who were afraid to take real proactive measures because they were worrying about, will it affect my reelection? I'm not going to be running for anything else after this. So I'm going to throw caution to the wind. Prop 103 has worked, but it does need to be tweaked.
Thank you, Steve. Stacy Korsgaden.
I will stand alone on this because I'm a results-oriented person, and the results are we don't have availability of product and we have incredibly high prices. So I am a firm no, it has not worked. So, and every time I hear someone say climate change here, I'm going to equate that to bad risk management from our elected leaders, because we can blame climate change, we can blame the crime statistics. All of those things are insurable. We have to lower our insurable risk, and we need to manage Prop 103. It would be hard to get rid of, but it hasn't worked. I've gone throughout the state of California. I've been to almost every county, and the story's the same. Young, middle-aged, and seniors in particular are being priced out of insurance. They can't afford their insurance policy, but I want to give everyone hope. It's fixable. We can lower the insurance risk. We can open up a department to welcome in insurance companies. The best way to fix a high price is to take market share. We need to bring in new companies.
Thank you, Stacy. Ben Allen.
Yeah, I mean, Prop 103 has done a really important job of protecting consumers, and I certainly don't want us to just throw it out and then price risk without working to reduce risk. And I agree, Stacy. We've had a major challenge on our hands with regards to climate-related risk. I was a voice in the wilderness for years, trying to put forward a proposal for major investments in risk reduction. Finally got it through during the last election, but I wish I'd been able to get it through before. But Prop 4 is now finally putting money out there that's working on our wildfire mitigation statewide, building out our water infrastructure, our firefighting infrastructure, et cetera. So I'm really excited about what that involves. But sure, it took way too long for us to get it out there, and I was really proud to have led the fight to get it out there. From my perspective, ultimately, this is about Prop 103. The couple of things we actually have to follow Prop 103, which says, for example, that the rate reviews are supposed to be 60 days. And as we know, as Steve has mentioned, the rate reviews have been far longer. Those short timelines are actually built into Prop 103. We need a Department of Insurance and Insurance Commissioner that's sticking to that expedited rate review process. I think that'll help the market a lot.
Thank you, Ben. Keith Davis.
Listen, my entire campaign, my entire goal is to save money for people of California. So I believe that in theory, I believe that that in spirit, Prop 103 is great. It is great for consumers. But the problem with Prop 103 is that I think it has contributed to many of the consumers, many of the carriers, leaving the state. And it's making them have less confidence. And so what I believe we need to do is I think we need to update it. I think that we need to create protections for consumers as it already has, but also make sure that we're giving confidence to the carriers so that way we can work hand in hand to make the insurance market a lot better than what it is. So I am for Prop 103 because it helps people, and I just want to make sure that everyone is helped. I just want to make sure that people have confidence in the insurance market, but I do think it needs to be updated.
Thank you, Keith. All right, my friends, it's the home stretch. Time for closing statements. Our closing statements will be in the reverse order that you made your opening statements in. So we will start with Jane Kim.
Thank you so much for hosting this tonight. I'm really excited to run to be the first woman insurance commissioner in the state of California. And as insurance commissioner, I will be pursuing policies that will be making insurance more affordable and available while making sure we have a plan for the long term. We have talked a lot about the multiple options out there. We have to actually address risk, because the only other options then are, if we don't address risk, is premiums go up, there's less competition, there's less availability. And one of the One of the most practical solutions that we have seen worldwide is a public insurance program that guarantees disaster insurance for every homeowner. And this exists in countries like New Zealand and France and Spain and Japan. Now, we can see what a deregulated system looks like. We just have to look at states like Texas, where they have all the competitors, but their prices are on average $4,000 higher. I'm running to be a champion for working people. This office is the only backstop between everyday Californians and this trillion-dollar industry. Again, I'm really proud to have been endorsed by Eleni Kounalakis, Malia Cohen, Senator Bernie Sanders, SEIU California, the teachers, nurses, and would be honored to earn your vote tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Merritt Farron.
Yes, thank you so much again for hosting this forum. This is so important to help educate our consumers, our voters around this incredibly important post. We have an affordability crisis in this state that I've seen traveling up and down the state. It pains me to see people leaving the state. I've spoken to so many who said my entire family has moved out. I'm the only one still here. I want to bring my 30 years of experience in legal, tech, and business to solve our problems and make California what it should be, a leader in insurance, a leader in insurance reform. We are the world's great center for innovation in private industry. We need to bring that into government, and I will do that as commissioner. And I will work tirelessly to jump in and help consumers while bringing innovative companies that want to serve consumers back into the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Merritt. Keith Davis.
That's not going to take away from my time, is it, Amy? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for having me. Thank the LWV as well as the PIFC. Listen, my entire campaign is this. Let's help people. Let's fix the insurance problem that we have. It's an affordability issue. Insurance has gotten so expensive that people are actually going without it. They're going without home insurance. They're going without auto insurance. And it's dangerous to everybody when somebody has that. And so I want to come in and we want to fix that problem. We want to lower the prices. There's a bill that was passed that if there's a rate increase under 7%, that it doesn't even have to be mentioned. Those are things that have to be fixed. We need more transparency in this office. We need more accountability in insurance. We need somebody that's going to go in and fight for the people and not just side with the carriers. And so that's what I want to do. I want to come into the insurance market, into the office of the insurance commissioner, and help the people and lower prices so that way we can start to go into a different direction and people can have more confidence in what we're doing here in California. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Keith. Ben Allen.
Yeah, every single moment of my time, if I'm elected to this position, I'm going to be asking myself, are we focused enough on affordability, a laser focus on affordability, because we know people are struggling, a laser focus on customer service, making sure that when someone calls the Department of Insurance, they're usually calling because they're in a moment of incredible distress. And they need to have a person at the end of the line, who's going to help them, who's going to assist them, who's going to be there and advocating for them. And then also, are we treating people better post-disaster? I saw how poorly people are treated in our state after a major disaster. And I'm running for this position because I want people to be treated so much better. I want a department that's fighting for people, that's looking out for people. I'm so proud to have the support of folks like Adam Schiff, Alex Padilla, our California environmental voters, California professional firefighters, wonderful folks all around the state, because they know that I'm someone who's always focused on putting people first and making the system work better for regular working folks around the state. That's going to be my focus if I'm elected to this position. I'd be honored to have your support.
Thank you, Ben. Stacey Korsgaden.
Stacey Korsgaden, running to be your insurance commissioner. I'm not running as a woman. I'm not running for any other title other than to be the most competent, experienced, licensed insurance professional that knows. I am an experienced person and specialize in all lines of insurance because it's not just auto and home. I spent my career working in insurance. I was nationally recognized for customer service, and that means that I will help create a department that is central, it's focused on service, both for the consumer and the insurance company to create an environment that advocates for the consumer. That means that we need to create an environment where insurance companies want to come into the state and that customers have an option for an abundance of insurance and a competitive price, which is what we don't have now. So the experience, I'm experience oriented, and I look forward to being your commissioner. Stacey Korsgaden.
Thank you, Stacey. Steve Bradford.
Thank you, Amy, and the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, and to my formidable candidates in this race. Thank you for the great debate. Again, I'm Steve Bradford, and I'm running for no other reason but to stabilize this market, to bring forth affordability, availability, and transparency, and modernize the Department of Insurance. This insurance crisis didn't happen overnight, so I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to fix it overnight. I've been elected for 26 years, and I know being elected doesn't come with a magic wand. The magic is working with people, bringing folks together, and that's what I've done. Be collaborative. We want a vibrant insurance market. If you have a vibrant insurance market, you're going to have a competitive market, and you're going to have greater choices for consumers. That's what I'll bring as your next insurance commissioner, making sure that insurance is available to all Californians and remove the politics out of it, because it has been a political stepping stone. I won't be running for anything else after this. I'm here to do the work that needs to be done for all Californians. So thank you for the opportunity, Steve Bradford.
Thank you, Steve. Lalo Vargas.
Thank you so much for having me. California has a $4 trillion economy, and there's no reason why we should be in the crises that we're in today. But the problem is that of that $4 trillion economy, 194 billionaires are hoarding the majority of that wealth. And we can build a public insurer. We can provide full compensation for fire survivors, but we have to be willing to infringe upon the profits of those ultra wealthy billionaires. We have to be willing to liquidate insurance companies that are claiming bankruptcy and use their assets to fund a public insurer. The only way we're going to deliver is by organizing people, organizing them not just into a political party, but into a mass movement. That is how any reform has been won. Look at the civil rights movement. Look at the Reconstruction era in the United States. Our history is that of organizing and building mass movements, and that's what I intend to do. That's why I'm running with the Peace and Freedom Party, because without that mass movement, any candidate here tonight runs the risk of being not accountable to the people, but to the insurance companies, of becoming nothing more or nothing less than the next Ricardo Lara. We cannot afford that anymore, and that's why I'm running Peace and Freedom Party.
Thank you, Lalo. Patrick Wolf.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Amy, very much for moderating. Thank you to the sponsors of this event. Thank you to all the competitors, everyone for appearing here this evening. Look, we have all heard the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If we keep electing politicians with no real insurance experience to be the state's chief insurance regulator, why should we expect our insurance system to work the way it should? So I have a radical idea that this time the person we elect to be the next insurance commissioner should actually have deep insurance expertise. I am that person. And if you think California needs to do much better in how we regulate insurance, I would be honored to be your next insurance commissioner, and I ask for your vote. My name is Patrick Wolf. I'm running for insurance commissioner, and if elected your next insurance commissioner, I will be a wolf on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. That concludes our closing statements and tonight's forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles, the League of Women Voters of Nevada County, the League of Women Voters of Pasadena area, the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County, and the Personal Insurance Federation of California, I'd first like to thank the candidates for running for office, as well as participating in tonight's forum. Thank you to our audience for attending and for taking the time to become informed voters, and to our volunteers who helped make tonight possible. Again, the recording from tonight's forum will be available on the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County YouTube channel and website. Expect to see them there, ready first thing tomorrow morning. And most importantly, do not forget to vote no later than June 2nd. Thank you all and have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks a lot.
Good night. Thank you for the opportunity.